They called her a gold digger. They called her trash. But when Liam Sterling stood by and watched his mistress kick his pregnant wife to the ground, he made the biggest mistake of his life. He thought Molly was a penniless orphan lucky to be married to a CEO. He had no idea that the nobody he was divorcing was actually the estranged heiress to the Romanov banking empire. And he certainly didn't know that 3 Gulfstream G650 jets had just touched down at Teterboro Airport, carrying the 3 most dangerous men in Europe, her brothers. And they aren't coming to talk. They're coming to burn his world to the ground. This is the story of how a billionaire lost everything in a single hour. The chandelier inside the grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel in New York City cost more than the house Molly grew up in. Or at least, the house Liam thought she grew up in. Molly Sterling stood near the periphery of the room, her hand resting protectively over her 7-month baby bump. Her feet were swollen inside cheap heels she had bought at Zara 3 years ago. Her dress, a simple navy blue maternity gown, stood in stark contrast to the sea of sequined Elie Saab and custom Versace gowns swirling around the room. This was supposed to be a celebration. It was the 5th anniversary of Sterling Tech, the company her husband Liam Sterling had built from the ground up. Technically, they had built it. Molly had worked 2 jobs as a waitress to fund his first server farm. She had proofread his code. She had cooked his meals. But tonight, Liam was nowhere near her. Across the room, under the grand archway, Liam was holding court. He looked devastatingly handsome in a bespoke Tom Ford tuxedo, a glass of 1942 Dom Perignon in one hand. But his other hand wasn't free. It was resting firmly on the waist of Jessica Vane. Jessica was everything Molly wasn't. Loud, sharp, and plastered in diamonds. She was the daughter of a senator, a woman who brought connections to Liam's business. She was also his mistress. Everyone in the room knew it. The board members knew it. The waiters knew it. Molly took a shaky breath and tried to find a waiter to ask for water. The humidity in the room was making her dizzy. "Well, look what the cat dragged in." A shrill voice cut through the hum of jazz music. Molly froze. Jessica was standing right behind her, flanked by 2 socialites who looked at Molly like she was a stain on the carpet. Jessica was wearing a red silk dress that left very little to the imagination. "Hello, Jessica," Molly said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm just looking for some water." "Water?" Jessica laughed, the sound brittle and cruel. "The staff entrance is around the back, sweetie. You're confusing the guests." "I'm his wife, Jessica," Molly whispered, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. "Are you?" Jessica stepped closer, the smell of expensive Chanel No. 5 suffocating Molly. "Look at you. You look like a maid who got knocked up by the gardener. Liam is embarrassed by you. Why do you think he didn't send a car for you? Why do you think you had to take an Uber here?" Molly bit her lip. It was true. Liam had told her the company cars were tied up. "I'm leaving," Molly said, clutching her stomach as a wave of nausea hit her. "Please, just let me pass." "Not until you apologize," Jessica sneered, blocking her path. "Apologize for what?" "For ruining the aesthetic," Jessica said, swirling her wine. "Liam is trying to close a deal with the Japanese investors tonight. Having a frumpy pregnant cow waddling around is bad for the brand." Suddenly, Liam appeared. He didn't look at Molly with concern. He looked annoyed. "What is going on here?" Liam asked, his voice low and dangerous. "Molly, why are you causing a scene?" I wasn't?" Molly stammered, looking at her husband. "She blocked me. Liam, I don't feel well. The baby is kicking really hard. Can we go?" Liam scoffed, checking his Patek Philippe watch. "I can't go anywhere. I have a keynote speech in 10 minutes. If you're sick, go home. You shouldn't have come if you couldn't handle it." "Liam, please," Molly pleaded, tears pricking her eyes. "I think something is wrong. My blood pressure." "Oh, stop the drama," Jessica shouted, causing several heads to turn. "She's just doing this to get attention, Liam. She sees you happy with me, and she uses the brat in her belly as a weapon." "That's enough, Molly," Liam snapped. "Get out! Call a cab!" He turned his back on her. He turned his back on his wife and his unborn son. Molly felt a sharp pain in her chest, not from the pregnancy, but from the heartbreak. She turned to leave, her vision blurring. She took a step toward the exit, but her heel caught on the edge of the thick Persian rug. She stumbled. It was an accident. As she tried to steady herself, her hand flailed out and knocked the glass of red wine right out of Jessica's hand. The dark liquid splashed all over Jessica's pristine white Valentino clutch and the hem of her red dress. The music stopped. The room went silent. "You clumsy bitch!" Jessica screamed, her face twisting into a mask of pure rage. "I'm sorry I slipped. Molly tried to apologize, holding her stomach with one hand and reaching out with the other. "Don't touch me!" Jessica shrieked. What happened next was so fast, yet it seemed to happen in slow motion for everyone watching. Jessica, blinded by entitlement and rage, didn't just yell. She lashed out. She raised her leg, clad in a sharp 4-inch stiletto heel, and kicked. She didn't aim for Molly's leg. She didn't aim for the floor. She kicked Molly squarely in the stomach. The sound was sickening. A dull thud followed by a sharp gasp. Molly crumpled to the floor instantly, curling into a ball, a primal scream of agony ripping from her throat. "My baby! My baby!" Molly screamed, clutching her belly as pain radiated through her entire body. The crowd gasped. A few people stepped forward, horrified, but most were too shocked to move. Liam spun around. He saw his wife on the floor. He saw Jessica panting, her face flushed with anger. "She ruined my bag!" Jessica yelled, pointing at the wine stain, completely ignoring the pregnant woman writhing in pain on the marble floor. "Liam, she did it on purpose!" Liam looked at Molly. For a second, there was hesitation in his eyes, but then he looked at the Japanese investors watching him. He looked at the board of directors. He made a calculation. He chose power over humanity. "Get up, Molly," Liam hissed, leaning down. "Stop acting." "Liam, she kicked me." Molly sobbed, blood starting to stain the navy blue dress. "I'm bleeding. Liam, please help me." Liam saw the blood. He went pale, but instead of helping her, he panicked. He couldn't let this scandal ruin his night. "Security!" Liam barked. Two large men in black suits pushed through the crowd. "Escort Mrs. Sterling out," Liam commanded, his voice cold as ice. "Call an ambulance outside. I don't want a scene in here." "Liam, no!" Molly cried as the guards grabbed her arms. "You can't do this! It's your son!" "I don't care," Liam whispered, close to her ear so only she could hear. "I never wanted the kid anyway, and frankly, I'm done with you. My lawyers will send the divorce papers in the morning." "You're nothing, Molly. You were nothing when I found you, and you'll be nothing when I leave you." He signaled the guards. They dragged her, literally dragged her, across the ballroom floor. Her heels scraped against the marble, leaving a trail of humiliation. Jessica smirked, smoothing her dress. Finally, took out the trash. Liam took Jessica's hand, raised his glass to the stunned room, and said, "Apologies for the interruption, ladies and gentlemen. Mental illness is a tragedy. Please, enjoy the evening." The music resumed. The chatter started up again, nervous but compliant. The rich and powerful went back to their champagne, choosing to ignore the brutality they had just witnessed. Outside, on the cold concrete of the hotel driveway, the guards dumped Molly on a bench. "Ambulance is 5 minutes out," one guard grunted, not even looking at her. Then they went back inside to protect the real guests. Molly lay there, shivering, the pain in her abdomen coming in waves. She reached into her clutch with trembling fingers. She didn't call 911. The guards had already done that. She didn't call Liam. She dialed a number she hadn't called in 6 years, a number with a Swiss country code. It rang once. "Molly?" A deep, rough voice answered immediately. It was a voice that commanded armies, a voice that made CEOs tremble. "Alexander," she whispered, her voice breaking, "help me." "Where are you?" The voice instantly shifted from confused to lethal. "New York, the Pierre." "Liam, his mistress. She kicked the baby. He threw me out." There was a silence on the other end of the line, a silence so heavy it felt like the air pressure dropped. "Is the baby alive?" I don't know. I'm bleeding." "Listen to me," Alexander said. "Keep breathing. I am tracking your phone." I am contacting Mount Sinai Hospital right now. The chief of surgery is a personal friend. You will have the best care in the world in 3 minutes. Alexander, I'm scared, she wept. I have nothing. He's divorcing me. I'm nobody. Nobody? Alexander's laugh was dark, terrifying, and full of promise. Molly, look at the sky. What? Look at the sky. Molly looked up through her tears. Above the New York skyline, cutting through the clouds, she saw lights. Not just any lights. 3 distinct sets of landing lights were banking hard over the Hudson River, ignoring standard flight paths, moving with aggressive speed. We are landing at Teterboro in 12 minutes, Alexander said. Sebastian and Julian are with me. We didn't bring the lawyers, Molly. We brought the war. Who is with you? She asked weakly. The family, Alexander replied. Liam Sterling thinks he's a shark? He's about to find out he's just a guppy in a tank with 3 megalodons. Hang on, little sister. We're coming. The phone line went dead, just as the ambulance sirens wailed in the distance. Molly clutched her phone to her chest. Inside the ballroom, Liam was laughing at a joke Jessica made. He thought he had solved his problem. He thought he had just discarded a broke, helpless wife. He didn't know that the woman he just kicked out was Molly Romanov. The only daughter of the Romanov dynasty, the family that quietly owned half the steel in Europe and the debt of half the countries in the United Nations. And he certainly didn't know that her 3 brothers, Alexander, Sebastian, and Julian, were currently descending from 30,000 feet with a vengeance that would make the devil pray for mercy. The countdown had begun. The tarmac at Teterboro Airport was slick with rain. It was a miserable night in New Jersey, but the ground crew wasn't complaining about the weather. They were too busy trembling. Usually, private jets land one by one. Tonight, 3 Gulfstream G650ERs, painted in matte black with no tail numbers, had touched down in a synchronized formation that violated at least 4 FAA safety regulations. The air traffic controllers had tried to wave them off, but the pilot of the lead jet had simply radioed back. We are landing. Clear the runway, or we land on top of you. As the engines whined to a halt, a fleet of 6 armored Cadillac Escalades, blacked out and idling, raced onto the tarmac to meet them. These weren't Ubers. These were diplomatic vehicles with flags that most Americans wouldn't recognize, the crest of the Romanov private security detail. The stairs of the first jet lowered. Alexander Romanov stepped out first. At 35, he was the patriarch of the family. He wore a charcoal bespoke suit cut from Italian wool that cost more than a mid-sized sedan. He didn't look angry. He looked like an executioner who had already signed the death warrant. He adjusted his cufflinks, his ice-blue eyes scanning the perimeter. Behind him came Sebastian. He was the muscle, but not in a crude way. He was a former commander in the French Foreign Legion. He had a scar running through his left eyebrow and moved with the coiled grace of a panther. He wasn't carrying luggage. He was carrying a Sig Sauer P-226 under his jacket. Finally, Julian descended from the second jet, the youngest at 24. He held a tablet in one hand and a phone in the other. He was a prodigy, a ghost in the machine. He could crash a stock market from his iPhone while ordering a latte. Status, Alexander commanded, his voice barely rising above the wind. Mount Sinai confirms she is in surgery, Sebastian reported, holding an earpiece. Emergency C-section. Massive internal bleeding. The baby's heart rate is dropping. And the husband? Alexander asked, stepping into the lead Cadillac. Still at the Pierre Hotel, Julian said, his fingers flying across his tablet screen. He's giving a toast. Photos are all over Instagram. #PowerCouple with that woman, Jessica Vane. Alexander stopped. He looked at his brothers. The air around them seemed to freeze. He is toasting while my sister bleeds? Alexander asked quietly. Yes, Julian confirmed. Don't touch him yet, Alexander said, sliding into the leather seat of the car. Let him have his night. I want him to feel safe. I want him to think he has won. Because when we take it away, I want him to watch it happen in slow motion. The convoy tore out of the airport, running 2 red lights as they sped toward the Lincoln Tunnel. 40 minutes later, the scene at Mount Sinai Hospital was chaotic. The entire VIP wing had been locked down. When the Romanov brothers walked in, the chief of surgery, Dr. Eris Thorne, was waiting for them, looking pale. "Mr. Romanov." "Drive," Thorne stammered. We didn't know she was your sister. Her file said Molly Sterling. No insurance info was on file initially." "Is she alive?" Alexander interrupted, walking past the reception desk without stopping. "She is in a medically induced coma," Dr. Thorne said, jogging to keep up with Alexander's long strides. "The kick caused a placental abruption. She lost 3 pints of blood. We had to deliver the baby immediately." They reached the NICU, Neonatal Intensive Care Unit. Alexander stopped at the glass window. Inside, in an incubator that looked far too large for him, was a tiny, fragile baby boy. He was hooked up to a dozen tubes. A ventilator was breathing for him. He looked transparent, weak, and fighting for every second of life. Sebastian, the tough soldier who had seen war zones, placed a hand on the glass and bowed his head. "He's so small." "He is a fighter," Julian whispered, his voice thick with emotion, like Molly. Alexander stared at the nephew he hadn't known existed until an hour ago. His jaw tightened until the muscles jumped. He turned to Dr. Thorne. "What does he need?" "Time," the doctor said, "and the best equipment. We have a ECMO machine, but it's currently in use by another." "Buy another one," Alexander said. "Buy 10. I don't care if you have to fly them in from NASA. If this boy dies because of a lack of resources, I will burn this hospital down and build a parking lot on the ashes. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir. Absolutely." "Good." Alexander turned to his brothers. "Stay with her, Sebastian. Nobody enters her room. No nurses without ID. No police. And definitely not her husband. If Liam Sterling tries to walk through those doors, break his legs." "With pleasure," Sebastian growled. "Julian," Alexander said, checking his watch. It was 2 a.m. The markets open in Europe in 4 hours. New York opens in 7. You have work to do. "I've already started," Julian said, a cold smile touching his lips. "I just hacked the security cameras at the Pierre Hotel. I have the video of the kick." "Don't release it yet," Alexander ordered. "First, we take his money. Then, we take his reputation. Then, we take his freedom." Alexander walked to the window of the waiting room, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Liam Sterling was sleeping in a penthouse, dreaming of his billions. "Sleep well, Liam," Alexander whispered to the reflection in the glass. "Tomorrow, you wake up in hell." 7:30 a.m. Manhattan. The sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Sterling penthouse on Park Avenue. Liam Sterling woke up with a pounding headache, the after-effects of the vintage champagne. He groaned and rolled over, reaching for Jessica. She was already awake, sitting up in bed, scrolling through her phone. But she didn't look happy. She looked confused. "Morning, beautiful," Liam mumbled, reaching for his silk robe. "What time is the flight to the Maldives? I need a vacation after that drama last night." "Liam," Jessica said, her voice shaking, "something is wrong with the credit card." "Which one?" "The black Amex." "I tried to order breakfast from Caviar, and it declined. So I tried your Visa Infinite. Declined. Even the debit card." Liam laughed, rubbing his eyes. "Impossible." "I have a $30 million credit line. The bank's probably just flagged it because of the jewelry I bought you last week. I'll call them." He picked up his phone. He had 47 missed calls. "That's annoying," he muttered. "Probably the legal team about the divorce." He ignored the calls and dialed his private banker at J.P. Morgan Chase. Usually the phone was answered on the first ring by a personal concierge. Today, it went to voicemail. "You have reached the desk of Marcus Lowe. If this is regarding the Sterling accounts, please be advised that all assets are currently under a global freeze order per the International Banking Commission. Please contact the Department of Justice." Liam froze. The phone slipped slightly in his hand. "Global freeze? That's ridiculous." Suddenly, his phone buzzed with the notification from the Bloomberg app. Then a CNBC alert. Then the Wall Street Journal. Breaking news. Sterling Tech under investigation for massive fraud. Alert. Sterling Tech stock plummets 60% in pre-market trading. What? Liam scrambled out of bed, rushing to his home office. He booted up his terminal. The screen was a sea of red. His company, Sterling Tech, which had closed yesterday at $450 a share, was currently trading at $120. Billions of dollars in market cap, wiped out in hours. "How is this possible?" Liam screamed, slamming his fist on the desk. "We had a record quarter." "Liam," Jessica yelled from the bedroom, "turn on the TV!" He ran back. On the massive 85-inch screen, a reporter was standing outside the headquarters of Sterling Tech. Behind her, FBI agents were carrying out boxes of files. "Shocking allegations surfacing this morning," the reporter was saying. "Documents released by an anonymous source known only as the Romanov Group appear to show that Liam Sterling has been embezzling investor funds to offshore shell companies for years. In addition, the lease on the Sterling headquarters has been revoked effectively immediately by the building's owner." "I don't embezzle," Liam shouted at the TV. "And we own that building? I bought it 3 years ago." His phone rang again. This time, it was his CFO, Gary. "Gary, what the hell is going on?" Liam yelled. "Liam, it's a bloodbath." Gary was hyperventilating. "We don't own the building. We thought we owned the building. But the holding company that sold it to us? It was a shell corp. We've been paying rent to a trust in Zurich. And that trust just evicted us." "Who owns the trust?" Liam demanded. It's the Romanov family, Liam. The European banking dynasty. They own the building. They own the debt. They own the servers our cloud is hosted on. Liam, they just pulled the plug on our data centers. The app is down. The website is down. We are dark. Liam sank onto the edge of the bed. The Romanovs? He had never met a Romanov in his life. Why would the most powerful family in Europe target a tech CEO in New York? "It's a glitch," Liam whispered, in denial. "It has to be a mistake." "Liam," Jessica said, her voice small. She was standing by the window. "Look down." Liam walked to the window and looked down at Park Avenue. There were police cars. Dozens of them. And not just police. Federal agents. They were swarming the entrance to his building. "They're coming for you," Jessica said, backing away from him. "We need to leave," Liam said, panic finally setting in. "Get dressed. We'll take the helicopter from the roof to Teterboro. My jet is prepped." I can't," Jessica said. "What do you mean you can't? Get your shoes." "Liam, check your Instagram," she said, holding up her phone. Her face was pale. Liam snatched her phone. The top trending video on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok wasn't his speech. It was a high-definition security video from the Pierre Hotel ballroom. It showed everything. It showed Molly, pregnant and fragile, stumbling. It showed Jessica kicking her. It showed Liam ordering the guards to drag her out. The audio had been enhanced. Everyone could hear him say, "I never wanted the kid anyway." The comments were scrolling so fast they were a blur. At Justice for Molly, "This man is a monster." At NYC Mom, "Boycott Sterling Tech, hope he rots." At Investigator 01, "That's assault." That woman could have died. "You're radioactive," Jessica said, grabbing her purse. "I can't be seen with you." "You kicked her," Liam roared. "You're in this too." "I was a victim of your manipulation," Jessica yelled back, reciting a line she had clearly just made up. "I'm leaving." She ran for the door. Liam chased her. "Jessica, wait!" He yanked the door open, but Jessica wasn't there. Standing in the hallway were two men. They weren't police. They weren't FBI. One was Sebastian Romanov, looking like a wall of muscle in a trench coat. The other was a man in a sharp suit holding a legal folder. Sebastian stepped forward, pushing Jessica aside as if she were a curtain. She shrieked and ran down the hall. Liam stumbled back. Who are you? Sebastian didn't speak. He stepped into the penthouse, closing the door behind him. The sound of the lock clicking shut echoed like a gunshot. Liam Sterling, Sebastian said, his voice deep and rumbling. You have been busy. Get out of my house. Liam tried to sound authoritative, but his voice cracked. I'm calling the police. The police are downstairs, Sebastian said calmly. They are waiting for my permission to come up. But first, we need to sign some papers. The man with the folder stepped forward and tossed a document onto the glass coffee table. What is this? Liam asked. Divorce papers, the lawyer said. And a transfer of assets. I'm not signing anything, Liam spat. I have lawyers. Your lawyers just resigned, Sebastian said. Check your email. Sebastian walked over to the minibar, poured himself a glass of water, and took a sip. You see, Liam, you made a calculation error. You thought you married a waitress. You didn't know that Molly's full name is Molly Alexandra Romanov. Liam's knees gave out. He fell onto the sofa. Romanov? Molly? That's impossible. She has no family. She grew up in a foster home. She grew up in boarding schools to protect her from kidnapping, Sebastian corrected. She wanted a simple life. She wanted to be loved for herself, not her money. So she hid her name. She chose you because she thought you were a builder, a dreamer. She loved you. Sebastian's face hardened. He leaned in close, invading Liam's personal space. And you treated the princess of the Romanov Empire like a stray dog. I didn't know, Liam whimpered. Ignorance is not a defense, Sebastian said. Now, sign the papers. You transfer 100% of your remaining stock to the baby's trust fund. You admit to fraud, and you grant full custody to Molly. And if I don't? Liam asked, a spark of defiance returning. You can't kill me. There are cameras. Sebastian smiled. It was a terrifying smile. Kill you? No, that is too easy. If you don't sign, Julian releases the rest of the files. The ones about your dealings with the cartel in Mexico. The ones about the underage labor in your factories in Southeast Asia. You won't just go to jail for fraud, Liam. You'll go to federal prison for human trafficking. You won't survive a week. Liam looked at the pen. He looked at Sebastian. He looked at the window where the police sirens were wailing. His life was over. The only choice was how it ended. With a shaking hand, Liam picked up the pen. But just as the tip touched the paper, the door crashed open. FBI! Freeze! A dozen agents in tactical gear swarmed the room. Sebastian didn't flinch. He raised his hand slowly, looking at the lead agent. Agent Miller, Sebastian said calmly. You're early. Step away from the suspect, Agent Miller yelled. Sebastian smirked at Liam. Looks like you ran out of time to sign the deal, Liam. Now, we do it the hard way. Liam was tackled to the ground, handcuffed and dragged out of his penthouse in his pajamas. As he was shoved into the elevator, he looked back. Sebastian was standing in the middle of the ruined living room, calmly dialing a phone number. Alexander, Sebastian said into the phone, looking Liam dead in the eye as the elevator doors closed. Phase 1 is complete. The rat is in the cage. Now, let's go visit the mistress. Jessica Vane was running, but for the first time in her life, she had nowhere to go. She had managed to flag down a yellow taxi, an indignity she hadn't suffered since college, and directed the driver to her father's estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. Senator William Vane was one of the most powerful men in Washington. He could fix this. He could call the police commissioner. He could make the video disappear. The iron gates of the Vane estate loomed ahead. Jessica rolled down the window, breathless. Dad! She screamed as she saw her father standing in the driveway, surrounded by aides loading boxes into a black SUV. Senator Vane looked up. His face wasn't welcoming. It was gray with exhaustion and fury. He signaled the security guard to open the gate, but he didn't move to hug his daughter as she stumbled out of the taxi. Daddy, you have to help me, Jessica sobbed, running toward him, her red dress now stained and wrinkled, her makeup smeared. Liam is crazy. The Romanovs. They hacked everything. You have to call the president. The senator stared at her. Then, without a word, he slapped her. The sound cracked through the crisp morning air. Jessica stumbled back, holding her cheek, stunned. "Do you know what you have done?" Senator Vane hissed, his voice trembling. "The video of you kicking a pregnant woman has been viewed 40 million times in 3 hours. 40 million. It was an accident." Jessica lied, tears streaming down her face. "Don't lie to me," he roared. "The Romanovs didn't just leak the video, Jessica. They leaked my emails. They leaked the campaign financing records. They linked Liam's shell companies to my re-election fund." He threw a newspaper at her feet. The headline read, "Senator Vane implicated in Sterling tech fraud ring." "I just resigned," he whispered, looking at the house he was about to lose. "The ethics committee is convening at noon. My career is over. The party has disowned me." "But what about me?" Jessica whimpered. "You?" The senator laughed bitterly. "You are the face of this disaster. Get out." "Daddy, please. I have no money. My cards are frozen." "Get out," he screamed. "You are not my daughter. You are a liability." He got into the SUV. The driver sped away, leaving Jessica standing alone in the gravel driveway of the home she grew up in. She walked for 3 miles to the nearest train station. She had $60 in cash in her purse. She bought a ticket back to the city, hiding her face under her scarf. She had one option left: the Soho House. She had friends there. Influencers. People who owed her. She arrived at the exclusive club in the meatpacking district an hour later. She walked up to the front desk, trying to summon her usual arrogance. "I need a room," she told the receptionist, "and a bottle of vodka. Put it on my tab." The receptionist, a young woman who usually fawned over Jessica, didn't smile. She looked down at a tablet. "I'm sorry, Ms. Vane. Your membership has been revoked." "Revoked? Do you know who I am?" Jessica snapped. "Yes," a deep voice came from the lounge area. "We know exactly who you are." Jessica spun around. Sitting on a velvet sofa, looking completely at ease, was Julian Romanov. He was wearing a casual cashmere hoodie and sipping an espresso. Next to him stood Sebastian, looking like a statue carved from granite. The lobby went silent. The other guests, models, actors, producers, stopped talking and watched. "You," Jessica breathed, backing away. "Hello, Jessica," Julian said, standing up. He held out his phone. "I was just reading the comments on your latest post. People are very creative with their insults." "What do you want?" she hissed. "You already ruined Liam. Leave me alone." "Liam was business," Sebastian said, stepping forward. You are personal." Sebastian reached into his jacket and pulled out a single white envelope. He held it out to her. "What is this?" she asked, her hands shaking. "A restraining order," Sebastian said, "and a civil summons. We are suing you for assault, battery, and emotional distress on behalf of Molly Romanov." "I have no money!" Jessica screamed. "You froze it all!" "We know," Julian smiled. "That's why we also bought your debt. Your student loans, we own them. Your car lease, we own it. The mortgage on your apartment, we bought the note from the bank this morning. And we are calling it in immediately." Jessica felt the room spinning. "You can't do that." "We already did," Julian said. "You are homeless, Jessica. You are bankrupt. And in about 10 minutes, when the NYPD arrives, you will be arrested for assault." Jessica looked around the room. She saw her friends, girls she had partied with in Ibiza, guys she had dated. They were all filming her with their phones. No one stepped in to help. They were watching her destruction as entertainment. "Why are you doing this?" she sobbed, falling to her knees. "I just wanted to be happy. I just wanted to be rich." Sebastian leaned down, his face inches from hers. "You kicked a pregnant woman because she inconvenienced you," he whispered. "You are not a victim. You are a predator who just met a bigger predator." Sirens wailed outside. Blue and red lights flashed against the glass windows of the club. "Goodbye, Jessica," Julian said, turning his back on her. "Enjoy Rikers Island. I hear the aesthetic is very minimalist." 2 police officers walked in. As they handcuffed Jessica Vane and led her out past the paparazzi, she didn't look like a socialite anymore. She looked small, broken, and completely alone. The Romanov brothers didn't watch her leave. They had more important places to be. The beep of the heart monitor was steady. Beep, beep, beep. It was the first sound Molly heard. She felt heavy, as if her body was made of lead. Her mouth tasted like cotton. She tried to open her eyes, but the light was too bright. She groaned softly. "She's waking up," a voice whispered, a familiar voice. "Get the doctor." "Molly?" Another voice, rougher but gentle. "Can you hear me, Elle?" Molly forced her eyes open. The room came into focus. It wasn't the cold, dark bedroom of the penthouse she shared with Liam. It was a suite. There were fresh flowers, hundreds of white roses, filling every surface. She looked to her right. Alexander was sitting in a chair, holding her hand. He looked tired. His tie was loosened, and he hadn't shaved, something she had never seen before. "Alex," she croaked. "I'm here," Alexander said, squeezing her hand. "I'm right here." Then she remembered. The ballroom, the kick, the pain, the baby! Molly tried to sit up, panic flooding her chest. "Where is he? Is he?" "He is alive," Alexander said quickly, gently pushing her back down. "He is alive, Molly. He is in the NICU. He is stable." Molly let out a sob of relief, collapsing back onto the pillows. "Is he okay? Is he hurt?" "He is small," Alexander said honestly, "but he is a Romanov. He is fighting. Sebastian has been sitting by his incubator for 6 hours. He refuses to leave." Molly laughed through her tears. "Sebastian hates hospitals." "He hates everyone," Alexander smiled weakly, "but apparently he likes his nephew." "And Liam?" Molly asked, her voice hardening. Did he sign the papers?" Alexander's expression darkened. "Liam is currently being processed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. He was denied bail an hour ago. The judge considered him a severe flight risk." "He knows?" Molly asked. "About us? About who we are?" "He knows," Alexander said. "And now the world knows. We had to break your cover, Molly. I'm sorry. We couldn't protect you and stay anonymous at the same time." Molly looked out the window at the New York skyline. For years she had hidden her name because she wanted to be sure that people loved her, not her billions. She had found Liam, and she thought she had won. She was wrong. "I don't care about the anonymity," Molly whispered. "I just want my son to be safe." "He will be," Alexander promised. "We are taking you home, Elle, back to Zurich, as soon as the baby can travel." "No," Molly said, a sudden steeliness in her voice. Alexander looked surprised. "No." "I'm not running away," Molly said, gripping the bedsheets. "Liam humiliated me. He tried to destroy me. If I leave now, I look like a victim. I want to stay. I want to look him in the eye when they sentence him." Alexander looked at his sister. He saw the bruising on her arms, the pallor of her skin, but he also saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had built the Romanov Empire. "Very well," Alexander nodded. "Then we stay, and we finish it." 2 days later, the arraignment. The courtroom at the Southern District of New York was packed. Reporters were fighting for seats. Sketch artists were sharpening their pencils. Liam Sterling sat at the defendant's table. He wore an orange jumpsuit. His bespoke suit had been traded for state property. He hadn't showered in 2 days. He looked gaunt, terrified, and small. His public defender, a weary man named Mr. Katz, was shuffling papers. "Don't say anything," Katz whispered. "Just let me talk." "I need to call my contacts," Liam whispered back, frantic. "I know people." The governor issued a statement calling you a stain on New York business," Katz said dryly. "No one is coming, Liam." The bailiff banged his gavel. "All rise!" The doors at the back of the courtroom opened. A hush fell over the room. Molly entered. She was in a wheelchair, pushed by Sebastian. She wore a simple black dress and dark sunglasses, hiding the dark circles under her eyes. But she held her head high. Flanking her were Alexander and Julian. They walked like a phalanx, a wall of power that parted the sea of reporters. Liam looked up. He saw her. For a moment, their eyes locked. Liam opened his mouth, perhaps to beg, perhaps to apologize. Molly slowly took off her sunglasses. She looked at him with cold, dead eyes. There was no love left. There was no anger. There was only indifference. She whispered something to Sebastian. Sebastian leaned down. "What is it?" "Tell him," Molly said loud enough for the front row to hear. "Tell him I named the baby." Sebastian smirked. He looked at Liam across the aisle. "Hey, Liam!" Sebastian called out, ignoring the judge's glare. Liam flinched. "She named the boy," Sebastian said, his voice carrying through the silent courtroom. "His name is Nikolai Romanov." Liam slumped in his chair. He had lost his company, he had lost his freedom. And now he had lost his legacy. His son would not carry the Sterling name. He would be raised by the wolves that Liam had tried to fight. The judge banged the gavel. "Order! Mr. Katz, how does your client plead?" Liam looked at Molly one last time. She was already looking away, talking to her brother, dismissing him entirely. Liam closed his eyes. "Not guilty," he croaked, though he knew the verdict had already been delivered. Not by the jury, but by the woman in the wheelchair. The real trial was just beginning. 5 months later, the day of reckoning. The air inside the Thurgood Marshall United States Courthouse in Lower Manhattan was thick enough to choke on. It smelled of stale coffee, floor wax, and desperate sweat. This was the, quote, case of the decade, according to the New York Times. The gallery was packed shoulder to shoulder. Sketch artists were sharpening their pencils, their eyes darting back and forth to capture the fear on the defendant's face. Reporters from CNN, BBC, and Al Jazeera were squeezed into the back benches, typing furiously on silent keyboards. Liam Sterling sat at the mahogany defense table, but the man who had once graced the cover of Forbes was gone. In his place sat a ghost. 5 months in the Metropolitan Correctional Center, one of the toughest holding facilities in America, had ravaged him. His signature thick, dark hair was now thinning and streaked with premature gray. His skin was pasty, deprived of sunlight and expensive dermatologists. The bespoke Tom Ford suits were a distant memory, replaced by a generic, ill-fitting gray suit provided by his public defender. It hung off his frame, highlighting the 30 pounds he had lost. His hands, once steady as they signed billion-dollar deals, were trembling so violently he had to clasp them together on the table to stop the shaking. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. Judge Martha Van Buren swept into the room. She was a legend in the Southern District, a woman known as the Iron Gavel for her merciless sentencing of white-collar criminals. She didn't look at the press. She didn't look at the lawyers. She looked directly at Liam. Liam tried to stand, but his legs felt like water. His lawyer, a court-appointed attorney named Mr. Katz, who looked like he hadn't slept in a week, had to hoist him up by the elbow. "Be seated," Judge Van Buren commanded. She opened a thick leather folder. The silence in the room was deafening. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning and the rapid breathing of Liam Sterling. "Mr. Sterling," the judge began, her voice calm but cutting, "we have spent 6 weeks reviewing the evidence presented by the prosecution. We have seen the forensic accounting provided by the Romanov Group. We have heard the testimony of your former employees, whom you bullied into silence. And we have watched the video." She paused. Everyone knew which video. The kick heard around the world. "In my 30 years on the bench," Judge Van Buren continued, taking off her reading glasses, "I have seen drug lords, murderers, and gang leaders. But rarely have I seen a man so completely devoid of a moral compass." Liam flinched as if he had been slapped. "You didn't just defraud investors of $1.2 billion, she said, her voice rising slightly. "You built a Ponzi scheme on the backs of working-class families. You laundered money for cartels to prop up your stock price. And when the walls began to close in, you physically assaulted your pregnant wife, a woman you believed was helpless, in a desperate bid to save your own reputation." "Your Honor, please," Liam croaked, his voice cracking. I made mistakes. I was under immense pressure. I can pay it back. I can work. I have contacts." "You have nothing," the judge snapped, slamming her hand on the bench. Your assets have been seized. Your properties in the Hamptons, your penthouse on Park Avenue, your fleet of cars, and your private jet. They have all been liquidated to pay your victims. You are destitute, Mr. Sterling. She looked down at the sentencing paper. Liam held his breath, his heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. On the charges of securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and aggravated assault, the judge read, I sentence you to 25 years in a federal correctional institution. A collective gasp ripped through the courtroom. 25 years? Liam whispered, the blood draining from his face. He would be an old man. His life was over. Additionally, the judge added, you are denied the possibility of parole for the first 20 years. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $1.2 billion. Since you cannot pay, you will work in the prison industrial program. Your wages of 12 cents an hour will be garnished until the debt is paid. The gavel banged. It sounded like a gunshot. No, Liam screamed, panic finally taking over. No, you can't do this. I'm Liam Sterling. I built this city. 2 U.S. Marshals moved in. They didn't care who he used to be. They grabbed him by the arms, their grips like iron vices. Molly, Liam yelled, twisting his body toward the gallery. Molly, help me. And there she was. Molly Romanov sat in the front row, the prime seat usually reserved for family. But she wasn't there as a supportive wife. She was there as the executioner. She wore a cream-colored Dior power suit that cost more than Liam's first car. Her hair was blown out in soft waves, and she looked the picture of health and grace. Next to her sat Alexander, looking like a king in a dark suit, and Julian, who was calmly checking his watch. Liam's eyes locked onto hers. He was searching for a shred of the woman who used to cook him pasta, the woman who used to rub his shoulders after a long day. Molly, please, he sobbed, the tears freely flowing now, snot running down his face. I'm sorry about the baby. Tell Nikolai the First, love him. He's my son. I have rights. Molly didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She slowly reached into her purse and pulled out a pair of oversized black sunglasses. She slid them onto her face, effectively erasing him from her view. She leaned over to Alexander. Shall we go? I have a board meeting in Zurich. Let's go, Alexander said. They stood up and turned their backs on him. Molly, Liam screamed, his voice breaking into a guttural howl as the marshals dragged him toward the side door. Don't leave me here! I'm the father! I'm the father! The heavy metal door slammed shut, cutting off his screams instantly. Outside the courtroom, the hallway was quiet. Molly adjusted her purse. She felt a lightness in her chest she hadn't felt in years. And Jessica? She asked Alexander as they walked toward the elevators. Sentenced this morning, Alexander confirmed. Her father refused to pay for her defense. She took a plea deal. 4 years at Bedford Hills. She'll be eligible for parole in 2 if she behaves. She won't behave, Molly said simply. No, Alexander agreed. She won't. They stepped into the elevator. The doors closed on New York City. The chapter was finished. 4 years later, the sanctuary. The world was different here. The jagged gray skyline of Manhattan was replaced by the serene, rolling greens of the Swiss Alps. The air didn't smell of exhaust. It smelled of pine needles, crisp snow, and expensive chocolate. The Romanov estate, on the shores of Lake Zurich, was a fortress of tranquility. The sun was setting, casting a golden, fiery glow across the water. On the manicured lawn, chaos was unfolding. I'm gonna get ya! I'm the monster! A 4-year-old boy with a mop of unruly dark hair and eyes the color of the Atlantic Ocean was sprinting across the grass. He was fast, too fast for a toddler. Chasing him was Sebastian Romanov, the man who had once led special ops raids in the desert, the man whose name made grown men tremble in boardrooms, was currently on his hands and knees, growling like a grizzly bear. You can't catch me, Uncle Bass, Nikolai screamed, giggling uncontrollably as he darted behind a large oak tree. I can catch anything. Sebastian roared playfully, lunging forward and scooping the boy up in his massive arms. Nikolai squealed with delight, kicking his legs. "Mommy! Mommy! Save me!" Molly sat on the stone terrace, wrapped in a cashmere shawl, watching them. She held a cup of tea in her hands. The stress lines that had once marred her face were gone. She looked younger, softer, yet stronger. Julian sat across from her, scrolling through an iPad. Sterling Tech stock was finally delisted today. Julian noted casually, not looking up. The liquidation is complete. The investors got about 15 cents on the dollar. Better than nothing. "And the building?" Molly asked. "Converted," Julian smiled. "It's now a free coding school for underprivileged youth. We named it the Phoenix Center. I thought the irony was appropriate." Alexander walked out onto the terrace. He held a thick, creamy envelope in his hand. The mood shifted instantly. Sebastian stopped playing. He set Nikolai down gently. "Go find the nanny, Nico. Tell her I said you can have one cookie." "Yes!" Nikolai cheered, sprinting toward the house. When the boy was gone, Alexander placed the envelope on the table. It had a U.S. Department of Justice stamp on it. "It arrived this morning," Alexander said quietly, "from FCI Otisville." Molly stared at the letter. She knew the handwriting. It was shaky, jagged, the handwriting of a desperate man. "He wants a visitation," Alexander said. "He has filed a petition. He claims he has been rehabilitated. He says he has found religion. He wants to see Nikolai." The wind rustled the leaves of the oak tree. Molly looked at the letter. She remembered the way Liam had looked at her in the ballroom. She remembered the pain of the kick. She remembered the silence when she told him she was pregnant, and the cruelty when he told her to leave. But mostly, she remembered the fear that her son would grow up thinking he wasn't wanted. "He says he has a right," Alexander continued, his voice neutral. "Legally, he has a difficult case, but he can try. We can fight it, of course. It will take money and time, but we will win." Molly reached out and took the envelope. It felt light, flimsy, like the man who wrote it. "He has no rights," Molly said, her voice steady. "He gave up his rights the moment he chose his mistress over his son's life." She didn't open the envelope. She didn't want to read his lies. She didn't want to know if he was sorry. It didn't matter anymore. There was a large citronella candle burning on the center of the table. Molly held the corner of the envelope to the flame. The paper caught instantly. The fire curled the edges, turning the white paper black. "Molly," Julian asked softly. "Nikolai has a father," Molly said, watching the flames consume the letter. She looked at Sebastian, who was dusting grass stains off his knees. She looked at Julian, who protected their future. She looked at Alexander, who protected their lives. "He has 3 fathers," she corrected herself. "He doesn't need a ghost." She dropped the burning letter into the ashtray. They watched it turn to ash, the smoke drifting up into the clear Swiss sky, disappearing forever. "To the family," Alexander said, raising his glass. "To the family." Molly whispered. Down by the water, the sun dipped below the horizon. The nightmare was over. The Romanovs had won. And for the first time in a long time, everything was exactly as it should be. And that is how the Romanovs settled the score. Liam Sterling thought he could discard people like trash, but he learned the hard way that some people don't just break, they bounce back harder. He lost his billions, his freedom, and his legacy, all because of one moment of cruelty. It's a brutal lesson. Be careful who you hurt, because you never know who is coming to save them. Now I have a question for you guys. Do you think Molly was right to burn that letter without reading it? Or did Liam deserve one chance to see his son after 4 years in prison? I want to hear your verdict. Drop a comment below with burn it or read it. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Next week, we have a story about a cheating groom whose wedding video revealed way more than he planned. You do not want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, the best revenge is living well, and maybe owning the bank that holds your enemy's mortgage. See you next time.